Margaret moved closer to her son Kevin to help with his 4-year-old twin grandchildren. Her daughter-in-law Vanessa transformed occasional help into unpaid slavery, 10-12 hours daily, 6 days a week without warning. Vanessa forged Margaret's signature on dozens of official documents, school, medical, government, making her appear as the children's legal caregiver. The plan forced Margaret to assume permanent custody while Vanessa and Kevin moved to Hawaii with a $180,000 annual job when CPS showed up investigating child neglect, children arriving dirty and hungry at school. All records pointed to Margaret Chen as the responsible party. Vanessa's fatal mistake: she misspelled the last name on all forged documents. The real name is Chen, not Chan. Margaret, meticulous by nature, documented everything silently. Schedules, children's conditions, demanding messages, and most importantly, all the forged documents with incorrect spelling. The revenge was systematic and legal: federal criminal charges for forgery, identity fraud, and attempted child abandonment. Vanessa lost everything: Hawaii, job, freedom. Kevin had to choose between mother and wife. Margaret won paid custody, $4,500 monthly plus expenses. Every document with Chan became criminal evidence. If you're enjoying this type of content, where justice is served cold and calculated, don't forget to like this video. It helps the algorithm show stories like this to more people who need to hear them. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any stories of legal revenge and guaranteed satisfaction. Comment below: have you ever had to deal with manipulative family members? How did you handle the situation? I'd love to read your experiences. Share with someone who needs to understand that underestimating older people is always an expensive mistake. Your support keeps these stories coming to you. Now let's get to the complete story of how Margaret transformed her daughter-in-law's arrogance into an unforgettable lesson. My daughter-in-law dropped my grandchildren at my door at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday without calling first, then drove away before I could say no. This had been happening for 8 months. What she didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything. And when Child Protective Services showed up at my house 3 weeks later with an investigation file, every single official document listed me as the legal caregiver. Except they spelled my last name wrong, Margaret Chan instead of Margaret Chen. That one mistake would cost Vanessa everything she'd been planning, including her dream move to Hawaii and her freedom. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started. March 2023. 3 months after I buried my husband, Robert. We'd been married 42 years. He died of a massive heart attack at 69, 3 weeks before our 43rd anniversary. The grief was suffocating. Our house in Portland, the one we'd spent 30 years paying off, felt too big and too empty without him. My son Kevin called me every day during those first terrible weeks. He was concerned, loving, the boy I'd raised to be compassionate. Come stay with us for a while, Mom. Vanessa and I have plenty of room, and the twins would love having Grandma closer. It seemed like a lifeline. Kevin and Vanessa lived 45 minutes away in Beaverton with their 4-year-old twins, Emma and Ethan. Sweet kids. I'd see them maybe twice a month before Robert died. I didn't sell my house. Something in my gut told me not to. Instead, I rented a small apartment near Kevin's neighborhood. $3,400 a month for a 1-bedroom place that was clean but basic. My teacher's pension was $3,200 monthly. Social Security added another, but between $190, I could afford it comfortably, while keeping my house rented out for $2,600 monthly to a lovely young couple expecting their first baby. The first month was genuinely helpful. Kevin and Vanessa both worked full-time. Kevin is an accountant making $78,000 yearly. Vanessa as a pharmaceutical sales representative earning $92,000 plus commissions. They had the twins in a preschool program 3 days a week, and I'd occasionally watch them on Vanessa's sales call days, occasionally turned into regularly by June, then regularly became constantly by August. By September, I was watching Emma and Ethan 6 days a week, sometimes 7, when Vanessa had important networking events on Sundays. The pattern was always the same. My doorbell would ring between 6:30 and 7 a.m. I'd open it to find two sleepy 4-year-olds in their pajamas, holding small backpacks, while Vanessa's white Lexus RX was already pulling away from my curb. Sometimes she'd text me 5 minutes before arriving. Other times, no warning at all. "Can you watch the twins today? Emergency sales meeting." "You're such a lifesaver, Mom." That's what her text said. Always framed as a favor, always last minute, always presented as temporary, the twins would stay until 7 or 8 p.m., sometimes later. Vanessa would text around 6 p.m., saying she was running late. Could I feed them dinner? Of course I fed them dinner. They were 4 years old and hungry. What was I supposed to do, let my grandchildren starve? By October, I was spending roughly $400 a week on groceries, activities and supplies for children who weren't officially in my care. Pull-ups because Ethan was still having accidents. Snacks because they arrived hungry every morning. Clothes because Vanessa kept sending them in pajamas or outfits too small. Art supplies, books, educational toys, everything a preschool teacher knows children need for development. I kept every receipt. Old habit from 40 years of teaching. Document everything. Save everything. You never know when you'll need proof. The first real warning sign came in early November. Emma started preschool late, arriving at 9:15 instead of 8:30. The teacher, Mrs. Patterson, called Vanessa to discuss it. Vanessa gave her my phone number instead. Mrs. Patterson called me, confused. "Mrs. Chen, this is Patricia Patterson from Bright Beginnings Preschool. I'm calling about Emma's repeated tardiness and some concerns about her hygiene. I was feeding the twins lunch when the call came. Hygiene concerns. Emma has arrived at school 3 times this week with unbrushed hair and wearing the same clothes from the previous day. She told us she slept in her clothes at Grandma's house. We just want to make sure everything is okay at home." My hands went cold. I brush Emma's hair every single morning. I make sure both twins have clean clothes. But they don't sleep at my house. They go home to their parents every evening. There must be some misunderstanding, I told Mrs. Patterson. The twins don't live with me. I just watch them during the day while their parents work. A long pause. "Mrs. Chen, according to our enrollment records, you're listed as Emma's primary guardian. Your address is on file as her residence. That's impossible." I gave her my address. "The twins live with their parents at 1247 Maple Street. That's not what our records show. Would you like me to email you a copy of the enrollment form?" "Yes, please." The form arrived 10 minutes later. There, in black and white, was my apartment address listed as Emma's primary residence. Emergency contact. Margaret Chen. Primary guardian signature. A scrawled version of my name that looked nothing like my actual handwriting. Margaret Chen. Not Chen. Chan. I stared at that signature for a full minute. Someone had forged my name on an official school document, and they'd spelled my last name wrong. I called Kevin at work. He sounded distracted, probably in the middle of tax season preparation. "Mom, can this wait? I'm in a client meeting." "No, Kevin, it can't. Did you know that Emma's preschool has me listed as her primary guardian?" "What? No, that must be a mistake. Vanessa handles all the school paperwork." "Kevin, someone forged my signature on the enrollment form, and they spelled my name wrong." He was quiet for a moment. "I'm sure there's an explanation. Let me talk to Vanessa tonight and we'll straighten this out." But he never called me back. And the next morning, Vanessa dropped the twins at my door at 6:52 a.m., like nothing had happened. That's when I started keeping detailed records. I bought a small notebook from Walgreens for $3.47. Every day, I documented what time the twins arrived, what condition they were in, what time Vanessa picked them up, what I fed them, what activities we did, how much money I spent. November 8th, 6:47 a.m. Twins arrived in yesterday's clothes. Emma's hair uncombed. Ethan wearing shoes 2 sizes too small. No breakfast. Vanessa drove away without coming to door. At 5 p.m., Vanessa picked up twins. "No, thank you. No payment offered. Daily cost, $47. Groceries, pull-ups, activities." November 9th, 6:51 a.m. Twins arrived in pajamas. Both hungry. Emma said, "Mommy forgot to make dinner last night. Made pancakes and eggs." Spent afternoon at library for story time. Vanessa picked up at 8:15 p.m. Said she was showing houses to important clients. Daily cost, 31 November 10th, 7:02 a.m. Twins arrived. Ethan has developing cold. No medicine sent. Bought children's Tylenol at CVS, $8.99. Called Vanessa to ask if I should take Ethan to doctor. No response. Vanessa picked up at 9:30 p.m. Twins both asleep. She carried them to car without waking them. Daily cost, $38. By December, I was spending an average of $1,800 monthly on childcare I wasn't being paid for. My pension covered it, but just barely. My savings account, the one Robert and I had built to $47,000 over decades of careful budgeting, was starting to shrink. I mentioned this to Kevin during our weekly phone call. Son, I love watching the twins, but this has become a full-time job. I'm spending nearly $2,000 a month on their care. Mum, you know Vanessa and I would help if we could, but money's really tight right now. We're saving for a down payment on a bigger house. Kevin made $78,000 a year. Vanessa made $92,000 plus commissions. Money shouldn't be tight. But I didn't argue. I just kept documenting. December 15th brought the second major red flag. I took Emma to her 4-year checkup because Vanessa texted me the appointment time and said she couldn't get off work. The pediatrician's office had forms for me to fill out. Guardian information, insurance details, medical history. I filled out what I could, but when I got to the signature line for legal guardian, I hesitated. I'm not her legal guardian, I told the receptionist. I'm her grandmother. The receptionist checked her computer. Ma'am, our records show you as the primary guardian. Margaret Chen, correct? My name is Margaret Chen, not Chan. She frowned at her screen. That's strange. All our records have you listed as Margaret Chen, living at 847 Riverside Apartments. That's your address, right? Yes, but someone has been filling out forms with incorrect information. Would you like to update our records? I would like to know who submitted these forms in the first place. She printed out the patient information sheet. There was my forged signature again. Margaret Chen. The handwriting was feminine, looping, nothing like my precise teacher's script. I took a photo of the form with my phone. Evidence number 3. That evening I called Vanessa directly. She answered on the 4th ring, sounding annoyed. Margaret, I'm in the middle of something. Can this wait? No, it can't. I took Emma to her checkup today. The medical office has me listed as her legal guardian with a forged signature. I didn't forge anything. I just filled out the forms with the most convenient information. You're the one watching the kids all the time anyway. Vanessa, that's fraud. You can't just put my name on legal documents without my permission, she laughed. It's not that serious. It's just paperwork to make things easier. You're so dramatic sometimes. My name is spelled wrong on every form. What? Chen, C-H-E-N. Not Chan. You've been spelling my last name wrong. A pause. Oh, I must have misread Kevin's family information. Misread. I've been your mother-in-law for 7 years. Look, I'll fix it when I have time. Right now I have to go. She hung up, but she never fixed it. Every document that arrived over the next 2 months had the same error. Margaret Chen. By January 2024, I was watching the twins 7 days a week. Vanessa had started dropping them off on Sundays too, claiming she had mandatory sales training sessions. I checked her company's website. No Sunday training sessions listed. I was exhausted. Watching 2 energetic 4-year-olds at 68 years old was taking a physical toll. My back ached from lifting them. My knees hurt from getting down to their level for activities. I was falling asleep by 8:30 p.m. most nights, completely drained, but I kept going because they were my grandchildren, and I loved them. Emma was bright and curious, asking questions about everything. Ethan was gentle and artistic, spending hours drawing elaborate pictures of dinosaurs and spaceships. They deserved better than being shuttled to their grandmother's apartment before dawn and picked up after dark. They deserved parents who actually cared for them. February 2024 brought the crisis that changed everything. But first, it brought the documentation that would save my life. I was cleaning out my small filing cabinet when I found a folder I'd forgotten about. Robert's old files from his work as an insurance adjuster. Inside was a letter he'd written to me before he died, tucked into an envelope marked, "Open if something happens to me." I'd been too grief-stricken to open it when he died, but now, 10 months later, I carefully opened the sealed envelope. Inside was a 2-page letter in Robert's neat handwriting. "My dearest Margaret, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're trying to figure out how to move forward. I know you. You're probably helping everyone around you and forgetting to protect yourself. So I'm going to tell you something I learned in 40 years of investigating insurance fraud. Document everything. People lie. Memories fade. But paperwork doesn't lie. If anyone ever tries to take advantage of you, and someone will because you're too kind for your own good, keep records. Dates, times, money spent, conversations, everything. The truth is always in the details, and the details are always in the documentation. I love you. I'm proud of you. And I'm trusting you to be smart enough to see when someone is using you. Always. Robert, I sat on my apartment floor and cried for 20 minutes. Then I got up, dried my eyes, and pulled out my notebook with 8 months of documented childcare. Robert was right. The truth was in the details. And I had details. That afternoon, I went to Staples and spent $127 on a small scanner and filing system. I scanned every receipt, every forged document, every text message from Vanessa. I created a spreadsheet tracking hours, expenses, and patterns. Total hours of childcare provided. 847 hours, approximately 46 40-hour work weeks. Total money spent on children's needs, $14,230. Total compensation received, 0. Number of thank yous received, 3. Number of times asked if this schedule worked for me, 0. Number of documents forged with my signature, 11 that I knew of. I backed up everything to 3 different cloud services. Email, Google Drive, Dropbox. Robert had taught me well. Then I waited, because I had a feeling something worse was coming. And I was right. February 22nd, 2024, 10:47 a.m. My doorbell rang while I was helping Emma with a puzzle, and Ethan was napping on my couch. I opened the door to find a woman in her 30s, wearing business casual clothes and holding an official-looking badge. Margaret Chen? My name is Margaret Chen. She checked her paperwork. I have you listed as Margaret Chen, residing at 847 Riverside Apartments, Unit 12B. That's my address, but my name is Chen, not Chan. Ma'am, I'm Sarah Morrison from Child Protective Services. I need to speak with you about Emma and Ethan Wilson. My heart stopped. CPS, what happened? Are the children okay? She glanced past me into my apartment, where Emma was visible at my kitchen table. May I come in? I let her in because I had nothing to hide. Sarah Morrison sat on my couch, carefully moving aside Ethan's blanket, and pulled out a thick file folder. Mrs. Chen, I apologize. Mrs. Chen, we received a report from Bright Beginnings Preschool expressing concerns about the welfare of Emma and Ethan Wilson. The children have arrived at school on multiple occasions, improperly dressed, unbathed, and hungry. According to our records, you are listed as their primary caregiver and legal guardian. I felt the blood drain from my face. I'm absolutely not their legal guardian. I'm their grandmother. I watch them during the day while their parents work. Sarah Morrison opened her file. Mrs. Chen, we have documentation from 3 different sources listing you as the primary guardian. Bright Beginnings Preschool, Beaverton Pediatric Clinic, and Washington County Emergency Services all have enrollment forms with your signature designating you as the children's legal guardian and primary resident. Those signatures are forged. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, filled out those forms without my knowledge or permission. She looked at me carefully. Ma'am, these are serious allegations. Forging legal documents is a crime, I know. That's why I've been documenting everything for the past 4 months. I pulled out my filing cabinet and showed her everything. The notebook with daily logs, the scanned documents showing forged signatures, the spreadsheet tracking hours and expenses, the text messages from Vanessa, the photographs of the twins arriving in dirty clothes and leaving clean. Sarah Morrison spent 40 minutes reviewing my documentation. Her expression changed from skeptical to concerned to quietly angry. Mrs. Chen, this is one of the most comprehensive records I've seen from a family member. You've essentially proven that you're providing full-time childcare without compensation, without legal authority, and without your informed consent. That's exactly what's happening. And these signatures, she held up 3 different forms side by side. They're clearly the same handwriting, and it's not yours. I showed her my actual signature on my driver's license. The difference was obvious. Mrs. Chen, I need to ask you directly. Are you caring for these children willingly, or are you being coerced? I thought about that question carefully. I love my grandchildren. I want them to be safe and happy. But this situation has become unsustainable. I'm 68 years old. I'm spending nearly $2,000 monthly on children who aren't legally in my care. And I've been watching them 7 days a week for months without a single day off. Have you tried to set boundaries with your daughter-in-law? I showed her the text messages where I'd attempted to reduce the schedule. Vanessa's responses were dismissive, manipulative, or ignored entirely. Sarah Morrison closed her file. Mrs. Chen, I'm going to be very direct with you. Based on this documentation, it appears your daughter-in-law has committed multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and potentially child endangerment by regularly leaving the children with someone who is not legally authorized to care for them. What happens now? I need to interview the children, interview the parents, and review all official documents. This investigation will take several weeks. In the meantime, I strongly advise you to consult with an attorney about your legal rights and options. After she left, I sat on my couch and stared at the wall for 20 minutes. Then I called Kevin. Your wife just got us investigated by CPS. He was silent for a long moment. Mom, what are you talking about? A social worker just left my apartment. Apparently, Bright Beginnings filed a report because Emma and Ethan keep showing up to school dirty and hungry. And every official document in the city has me listed as their legal guardian with forged signatures. That's impossible. Vanessa handles all the paperwork. Kevin, Vanessa has been forging my signature on legal documents for months. She's committed fraud, and now CPS is investigating the family. I could hear him breathing hard. This has to be a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding. Your wife spelled my last name wrong on every single forged document. Chan instead of Chen. That's how careless she's been. I'm coming over. We need to talk about this. But when Kevin arrived an hour later, Vanessa was with him, and she was furious. How dare you report us to CPS, she hissed, standing in my small living room like an invading army. We've been nothing but kind to you, giving you time with your grandchildren, and this is how you repay us. I didn't report anything. The preschool reported you because you keep sending Emma to school, dirty and unfed. That's because you're the one watching her in the mornings. If she shows up dirty, that's your fault. Emma doesn't sleep here, Vanessa. She sleeps at your house. You're the one dressing her in the morning, or not dressing her, apparently. Kevin stepped between us. Mom, Vanessa, let's all calm down and figure this out. I pulled out the forged documents. Kevin, look at these. Your wife has been signing my name on legal forms and spelling it wrong. Chan. She doesn't even know how to spell my name. Kevin examined the forms, his face growing pale. Vanessa, did you do this? I was trying to make things easier, she said, her voice shifting to something softer, more manipulative. Margaret watches them all the time anyway. I thought it would be simpler if she was listed as their guardian for school and medical purposes. You thought it would be simpler to commit fraud. It's not fraud. It's just paperwork. She's so dramatic about everything. I felt something cold and hard settle in my chest. Vanessa, I want you to leave my apartment. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. Kevin looked between us, torn. Mom, we should talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. Your wife has been using me as free childcare for 8 months, stealing my signature and committing crimes in my name. I want her out of my home right now. Vanessa grabbed her purse. Fine, but don't expect us to bring the twins around anymore. You've ruined everything with your paranoia. They left. The apartment was silent, and I realized I had just started a war I hadn't intended to fight. But if Vanessa wanted war, I had 8 months of ammunition. The next morning I called a lawyer. His name was Marcus Webb, 62 years old, specializing in elder law and family fraud cases. Margaret Hayes, the lawyer who'd handled Robert's estate, had recommended him. "Mrs. Chen," Marcus said after reviewing my documentation, "you have one of the strongest cases of exploitation I've seen. Your daughter-in-law has committed multiple felonies, and you have evidence of every single one. What are my options? You can file for cease and desist, demanding she stop using your name and information. You can file a police report for fraud and forgery. Or you can wait to see what CPS finds in their investigation and use that as leverage. I don't want to hurt my son or grandchildren." Marcus leaned forward. "Mrs. Chen, with all due respect, your son has allowed his wife to exploit you for months, and your grandchildren are being neglected. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is force accountability. I paid Marcus a $12,500 retainer from my dwindling savings and authorized him to file a formal complaint with the police about the forged documents." The next week was silent. No calls from Kevin, no texts from Vanessa, no requests to watch the twins. I assumed they'd found alternative childcare, or more likely, Vanessa was actually parenting her own children for once. Then on March 8th, I received a certified letter from a law office I'd never heard of. Patterson and Associates, family law attorneys. Inside was a petition for emergency guardianship of Emma and Ethan Wilson, filed by Vanessa Marie Wilson, requesting that the court grant legal custody of the minor children to Margaret Chen, maternal grandmother, due to the parents' upcoming relocation for employment purposes. They were trying to force legal guardianship on me, and they still spelled my name wrong. The petition claimed I had been the children's primary caregiver for over a year, that I had agreed to assume full-time guardianship, and that this arrangement was in the best interests of the children. 3 affidavits were attached from people I'd never heard of, claiming they'd witnessed me agreeing to this arrangement. Complete fabrications. All of it. I called Marcus Webb immediately. "They're trying to force custody on me so they can move away." Marcus read the petition over the phone. "Mrs. Chen, this is incredibly bold and incredibly stupid. They've filed legal documents using a falsified version of your name, which matches the forged signatures we've already reported to police. They've just handed us evidence of ongoing fraud. What do? We file an emergency response denying everything. We submit your documentation proving fraud, and we contact CPS immediately. This petition is going to backfire spectacularly." That afternoon, I got a phone call from Kevin. He sounded tired, defeated. "Mum, did you get the guardianship papers?" "I did, and the answer is absolutely not." "Mom, please, Vanessa got offered a job in Hawaii, $180,000 a year. This is our chance to get ahead financially, to give the twins a better life by abandoning them with me. You love watching them. You've been doing it for months. I've been doing it because Vanessa manipulated me into it. But I will not be legally responsible for raising your children while you move to paradise. It's not abandonment. It's temporary guardianship. We'd come back to visit. The kids would love living with you full-time. Kevin, your wife has been forging my signature for months. She's committed multiple felonies. She spelled my name wrong on legal documents. And now she wants to make me legally responsible for your children so she can move to Hawaii. Mom, you're making this sound worse than it is. I have a CPS investigation file that says otherwise. He was quiet. What do you want, Mom? I want you to be a father to your children. I want your wife to stop committing crimes. And I want you both to understand that I am not your unpaid servant. I hung up. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for March 22nd. Marcus filed our response on March 15th, including all of my documentation, the police report about the forged signatures, and a formal request that the petition be denied and Vanessa be investigated for fraud. On March 20th, 2 days before the hearing, Sarah Morrison from CPS called me, "Mrs. Chen, I wanted to give you a heads up about our findings before the court hearing. Go ahead. Our investigation found substantial evidence of child neglect by the parents. The children reported going to bed hungry multiple nights per week, being left alone in the house while the parents went out, and being dropped at your apartment so early that they were frequently still in pajamas. I felt sick. How bad is it? Bad enough that we're recommending supervised visitation and mandatory parenting classes. We're also recommending that the guardianship petition be denied, as it appears to be an attempt to circumvent neglect findings by transferring responsibility to you. What happens at the hearing? The judge will review our report, your documentation, and the police investigation into the forged signatures. I suspect it won't go well for Mrs. Wilson. The hearing was in courtroom 4B at Washington County Courthouse. I arrived with Marcus Webb at 8:30 a.m. for the 9 a.m. hearing. Kevin and Vanessa were already there with their attorney, a polished man in his 50s who looked expensive. When we entered the courtroom, Vanessa's attorney approached Marcus. "Mr. Webb, I think we can resolve this without a hearing. My clients are willing to withdraw the guardianship petition and compensate Mrs. Chen for her time." Marcus smiled coldly. "How much time? 8 months of full-time childcare at minimum wage comes to roughly $38,000. Will your clients be paying that?" The attorney paled. "That's unreasonable. Unreasonable is forging someone's signature on legal documents. We're not settling. We're going to hearing." Judge Patricia Morrison presided. She was in her early 60s with silver hair and the no-nonsense demeanor of someone who'd seen every family law trick in the book. "I've reviewed the petition, the response, the CPS report, and the police investigation," she said, looking over her reading glasses at Vanessa and Kevin. "Mrs. Wilson, did you sign your mother-in-law's name to legal documents without her permission?" Vanessa's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my client was operating under the assumption that Mrs. Chan had given verbal consent." "Margaret Chen," the judge corrected. "And according to the police investigation, your client spelled Mrs. Chen's name incorrectly on 11 separate legal documents. That suggests either remarkable carelessness or deliberate deception." Vanessa stood up. "Your Honor, I was just trying to make things easier. Margaret watches the kids all the time anyway." Judge Morrison held up the CPS report. "Mrs. Wilson, this report indicates your children have been neglected in your care. They've arrived at school hungry, dirty, and improperly dressed on multiple occasions." "The school filed the initial complaint, not Mrs. Chen." Vanessa's face went red. "That's because Margaret isn't taking proper care of them in the mornings." "Your children don't sleep at Mrs. Chen's home. They sleep at yours. You dress them. You feed them breakfast or fail to. That's not Mrs. Chen's responsibility." She showed me the forged enrollment forms, side by side, with my driver's license. "Mrs. Wilson, these signatures are clearly not Mrs. Chen's handwriting, and you've misspelled her name on every document." "Can you explain that?" Vanessa's attorney put a hand on her arm, but she shook him off. "I must have copied the spelling from Kevin's family information. Your husband's last name is also Chen, C-H-E-N. Where exactly did you get Chan?" Silence. Judge Morrison closed the file. "I'm denying the guardianship petition. Furthermore, I'm ordering a full custody evaluation based on the CPS findings. Until that evaluation is complete, Emma and Ethan Wilson will remain in their parents' custody with mandatory supervised visits and parenting classes." Vanessa's attorney stood. "Your Honor, my clients are relocating to Hawaii for employment. They need a resolution quickly. Your clients should have thought of that before neglecting their children and forging legal documents. The custody evaluation will take approximately 60 days. The Hawaii job will have to wait." She turned to me. "Mrs. Chen, I'm also ordering that the parents compensate you for documented childcare expenses. I'm awarding you $14,230 for out-of-pocket costs, plus an additional $5,000 for emotional distress. Payment due within 30 days. Vanessa stood up. "Your Honor, that's nearly $20,000. Mrs. Wilson, you got 8 months of free childcare from a woman you exploited. Consider yourself fortunate that I'm not awarding her the full $38,000 she's entitled to." The gavel came down. Hearing adjourned. In the hallway afterward, Kevin approached me. He looked devastated. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this bad." "You didn't want to know, Kevin. That's different. Vanessa lost the Hawaii job. The background check required for the position turned up the police investigation into the forged documents. The offer was rescinded. The custody evaluation took 8 weeks. The evaluator interviewed me, interviewed Kevin and Vanessa, observed them with the twins, and reviewed all the documentation. Her report was damning. Vanessa showed minimal attachment to the children, repeatedly checking her phone during observation sessions and making dismissive comments about their needs. Kevin was more engaged, but admitted he'd been absent from parenting duties, leaving everything to Vanessa, who had in turn left everything to me. The evaluator recommended that Kevin be granted primary custody, with Vanessa receiving supervised visitation pending completion of parenting classes and therapy. She also recommended that I be given grandparent visitation rights with a formal schedule. On May 15, 2024, the final custody order was entered. Kevin got primary custody. Vanessa got supervised visits every other weekend. And I got the twins one afternoon per week, Wednesday from 3 to 6 p.m., with all expenses reimbursed by Kevin at $50 per visit. But the real justice came on June 3rd. Vanessa was charged with 11 counts of forgery and 2 counts of fraud for the forged documents. Her attorney negotiated a plea deal, 2 years probation, 200 hours community service, a $5,000 fine, and mandatory restitution of the full $19,230 the court had ordered. Kevin filed for divorce in July. He called me to tell me personally, "Mom, I should have protected you. I should have seen what Vanessa was doing. I'm sorry I let it go on so long. Kevin, you were manipulated too. But you have a chance now to be the father those kids deserve. I'm moving closer to you. I found a townhouse 3 blocks from your apartment. I want the twins to see you regularly, but on your terms, not because I'm dumping them on you." True to his word, Kevin moved in August. The twins visited me every Wednesday afternoon. We baked cookies, read books, did art projects. They started calling it Grandma Day. But at 6:10 p.m., Kevin picked them up, thanked me genuinely, and paid me exactly $50 for my time and expenses. Vanessa completed her community service and probation. I saw her once at a distance during a custody exchange. She looked smaller, diminished. She didn't acknowledge me. The twins are 6 now. Emma wants to be a teacher like I was. Ethan wants to be an artist. Kevin is dating a nice woman named Claire, who treats me with respect and actually parents the children when they're in her care. My house in Portland is still rented out, providing steady income. My apartment is peaceful. My savings account, depleted by Vanessa's exploitation, has been rebuilt with the restitution payments and the careful budgeting Robert taught me. I'm 69 now, the age Robert was when he died. But I'm not gone. I'm here, I'm sharp, and I'm done being anyone's unpaid servant. Sometimes I think about that first morning when Vanessa dropped the twins at my door at 6:47 a.m. without asking. If I'd said no then, maybe this would never have escalated. But then I remember Robert's letter, document everything, because the truth is in the details. The truth was that Vanessa saw an elderly widow and thought she'd found an easy mark. Someone too old, too kind, too traditional to fight back. She was wrong about all 3. Last week, Emma brought me a drawing she made at school. It was a picture of the 2 of us baking cookies. And she'd written, "My grandma is the strongest person I know," across the top in her careful 6-year-old handwriting. I put it on my refrigerator, right next to the court order that proved she was right.